Petra Cook here. Thanks for stopping back in as we continue our Mandelbulb 3D Tutorial Series. Now, just turning our attention here to the lighting tab. Boy, we've made a lot of progress here. The last half a dozen or so sessions, we talked about the lighting capabilities and the coloring capabilities of the Mandelbulb 3D software. We had talked about the global lighting, we talked about object ambient lighting, the dynamic fog. We talked about saving presets and being able to save your lighting and your coloring configuration, as well as being able to reopen the lighting and coloring configuration. So we've made some pretty good progress here. Now, this is a good time to talk about the option where we can have multiple lights in the scene. Now, this light number 1 has been specifically configured to be a global light. And you know, think of the global light as maybe the sun with a very, very broad, wide distribution of the light. All right, and the global light. And it's been configured that way because, you know, in a scene you normally have global light of some sort. Now, with the Mandelbulb 3D software, you can actually have up to 6 light sources. Now, these are sources now. This area in here, that's your light sources. Let me point out that you only have one configuration for object lighting, one configuration for ambient, one configuration for your dynamic fog. You can have 6 light sources, but only one configuration for object, ambient, and dynamic fog, and back picture too. All right. Now, just putting us on light number 2 here so that we can illustrate it. By default, these light sources are off. I'm going to turn this one on. Now, I have now 2 global light sources. And I'm going to prove that to you by going over here and picking a gaudy red. So I have now a light source number 2 as a red global light. Now, just like before, I'm able to set relative to object, and I can set the X, the Y, and the X angles, just like I could before. So let's do something crazy like that. So here I have a light source. Well, let's go like this. Crazy like, you know. See, which way is that light coming in? Looks like it's coming in from this area and down. Okay. Whereas my other light source, it's coming from this area here. Okay. So what I've configured here is 2 global light sources. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you know, we could be on an alien planet and we have multiple suns. We've seen that in science fiction. That's pretty cool. We could do that. We could do that. I could have 6 global light sources if I wanted. Let's make this global. Let's turn that to, let's see, I don't know, brown. Turn it on. 3 global light sources. Getting rather crazy here. Why not? Why not? We are in an artistic environment where we can do whatever we want with the tools that are provided to us with the Mandelbulb 3D software. And there's nothing saying that I have to have a scene which looks like my backyard, natural. I could be as foreign and as crazy as I want. I can be sitting on some foreign planet on the other side of the universe or in another galaxy. I can do whatever I want. I'm the artist, and I have the tools to be able to work with. I'm going to turn this light number 3 off, and I'm going to go back over to light number 2, and I'm going to make that a positional light, a spotlight. And I make it from, I change it from global to positional simply by choosing the tab. But now I don't know where it is. You see, I don't know where it is. So we have a function here. Click on button and afterwards on object, the fractal object, in order to, in the image, to set the midpoint for the light. So I'm going to click on mid, and then I'm going to click somewhere here. All right, on the graphic I've clicked. Now what I've done is I've actually set the position and on the X and the Y and the Z axis. I picked the position for that positional light. Now I can move it around. Here I can move it on the X-axis. I can move it on the Y-axis, up and down. Oh, there it is right there. You see it there? There she is. All right. Or I could move it on the Z-axis. All right. This is closer to the camera. This is further from the camera. All right. Or I could click on mid and I could put it way out there, even to the point where I can't even see it. Let's put it down in here. There we go. All right. And I can change the intensity. Going back up here, I change the intensity. Now you see how this this positional light here is casting out some ambient light color. Light intensity and color artifacts are being casted out by this this positional light, which is crazy because it's red. It's just so we can see where it is. I don't know. Let's make it a let's almost make it almost like a flashlight. Nah, I can do better than that. Let's make it more of a yellow. All right, there we go. So I've used this positional light to highlight some of the recesses of my fractal scene. I can have 6 sources of light. Now these are sources. These are light sources up here. I can have 6 of them, and they can be all global, all positional, or a combination of global and positional. I get to decide. I'm the artist. I get to decide. Now I can also use a light map. Let's see here. Let's come over here. Let's turn this positional light off. Oh, why don't we turn off the source light here? All right. The reason I see anything is because my ambient light controls they have light and intensity as well. Let's use this map. Let's see what I can do with relative to object. Oh, that's really hard to see, isn't it? Oh, I got to turn it on. All right, so I turned it on. So here I'm using a map. I'm going to talk about the mapping in just a couple sessions. There's over here on the object, there's use a map for diffuse colors. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to do a whole session just on that. Now, but the concept of the map, we can actually project our light source as a map where the variations in the map itself will ultimately influence how the light is generated into the scene. So I can have a light map, light source. And as you can see here, it does some pretty interesting things. So I've got 6 sources of light. Those sources of light can be global. They can be positional. And they can also be a light map. All right. Again, now, just in review here, you have 6 sources that can be global, positional, or light map, but you only have one configuration of the object, ambient, defog, and back picture. So just because you change the tab up here does not mean anything changes down here. When you save this light and color configuration, you're also saving these 6 light sources, whatever's turned on. All right. You can turn the light source off. You can turn it off. All right. We can come back over here. This is positional light. This right here indicates that it is basically hard shadows are calculated in. I think I had mentioned that early on. And here I can actually control the degree of the specular, the amount of energy in that source light that would then be used in your specular, which is down in here. All right, and this is a method of calculating the light meaningful to somebody who understands the internal mechanism of this 3D software, but you could try different settings to see if you like something better. From an artist standpoint, this is a control that you don't necessarily understand, but as you see an impact, you may choose one over the other. I'm going to turn my global light back on. These are all turned off, okay, because we're done talking about those for now, and we'll leave this scene this way. Okay. Okay, how about we do this? In the next session, let's talk about this mapping for diffuse color feature, which I think you're going to find quite interesting. Okay, so I'll see you in the next session.